Hello, everybody. Rob Thompson and Joy
Joy.
Morales here. Yep, and we're back with Shift Happens, your AI podcast. Schedule conflict last week. We didn't get one of these out, but I'm glad we're back. How are you doing today, Joy?
That's great. Weather's great. I'm happy. I think spring is here and on our way to summer.
Yep, it is. It is. Well, I think we'll probably see another freak snowstorm here, but but it'll be quick. That's how it works here. Uh, so hello. So what are we talking about today?
Well, last week was a big week in AI, which is ironic that we say that because we could literally say that every week.
If
But
I could.
ChatGPT came out with their latest version, which is 4.0. So I thought we should talk about that and how that applies to business.
Okay. Let's do it. Yeah, you told me beforehand you watched that presentation twice. What'd you think?
Well, the first thing that struck me is how conversational and lifelike it is. So I know you use the voice application way more than I do, but after watching the demo, it really encouraged me or gave me an incentive to start using it as a conversational tool and not just a text tool.
Cool. That's been yeah. I have frequently talked to ChatGPT when I'm driving. This morning I was driving to a meeting and was having a conversation in the car with it, and it's yeah, it's really neat. I've been using it so long for that I forget how neat it is, but and how conversational it is. And when I look back at the transcript of the conversation I was having this morning, it's like I'm talking to another person. I was like, oh, hey, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Let's further delve into the topic we were talking about this morning. I was actually having a conversation with it about information theory this morning and its application in social media management, and entropy came up. It talked about entropy in information systems, and so I was like, oh, that's really fascinating. Let's unpack that a little bit more. But yeah, I had a full blown conversation with it this morning.
Well, and I think it's more lifelike. I mean, it has a sense of humor. It can spot criticism and respond to criticism, and it responds to tone, and it's just more. I don't want to say lifelike or human because I don't want to freak people out. However, it does have its own personality now, which I guess to me, it doesn't matter how you engage with it, just so you engage with it.
Yeah,
So you're more verbal. I'm more a text person. I think it goes back to my court reporting background. I love to type it. So, but seeing how it can converse in a more authentic way, I guess I want to use that word. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. That it gives you an incentive to engage with it when you're away from your computer, which is the win.
absolutely. That's yeah. I use both. When I'm at the computer, I tend to type to it like you do, and because I'm usually at a keyboard. But when I'm driving or when I'm at the gym or running, I'll often shoot. Last night I was running and up Rampart Range Road and having a conversation with it about the OODA loop, and then break away, listen to a podcast, and then I flip back to the Chat GPT app and tell it, hey, ChatGPT, I have a thread that I call iRob, and I would say, hey, bookmark this thought, please, for inclusion in this conversation, and then flip back to my podcast. Usually, when I'm running, I just listen to music, but last night my brain was on and wouldn't turn off, and so I was listening to an Infinite Loops podcast, and yeah, to the point of our podcast here. I was actively listening to information in a podcast, then flip it over to ChatGPT to ask it to include that in the iRob thread for later analysis, and then that led to the conversation this morning. And this is all verbal, like you said, it's all verbal.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yes.
how that can apply to business is on your off time or when you have a few minutes or your next appointment hasn't started and you're waiting with a cup of coffee, you can be actively working in whatever lane that takes to get more things done. I mean, we talk about efficiency all the time. Well, I think this upgrade in the voice aspect is really going to has the opportunity to fill in gaps for your workday to even knock out more things. So really, when you end your day, you could really end your day. That's how that upgrade I see can help businesses. And there's numerous others. You pick one.
Oh, well, I mean, I use it as the smartest, dumbest assistant on the planet, right? And I need to, as it gets more human, I need to stop referring it to that way. I don't want to insult it, right? But it's my phone right here. It's my phone. So right, I have the ChatGPT app. As I was working earlier today, I've got the ChatGPT app right there, and I'll be thinking about something, doing something. I'm working on the workflows that I was working on earlier,
Mhm.
and a thought occurs to me, and so I jump over and uh, I add to the thread. Oh, hey, errant thought here. ChatGPT, can you include this? For me, it's an always-on assistant that has perfect recall or near perfect recall. Increased capability with that recall capability now. And
Yeah.
here's another interesting thing. I've had the pro version for some time. We both have, I know. The recall seems to work even on historical threads. For example, I went back and I asked it this morning. Can you recall the first message of this iRob thread? And it does. It did. So whatever they've done, it's increased the capability of existing threads as well. In my
Well, and
opinion,
that,
and
yeah,
because
and that's
I asked it,
amazing.
I said, "Go ahead."
Now, go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh no, I was just going to say that's important because this has been a year long running thread for me, and I asked it, hey, specifically, I need you to go back and tell me the mental models that we've discussed, itemize those mental models here, and I used it as a test of its recall capability, and true enough, it went back and reviewed the thread and itemized all the different mental models we've discussed in the thread. It's really cool,
Yeah.
and so I can't even stress as a business owner how cool it is to have that always on muse that has recall and it's a reference point. In a meeting this morning we were talking about mental models and the application of mental models and how important it is as a business owner. For example, the creator statement, that we'll drop the link in the thread here, but uh, I'm kind of wandering here a little bit, but as a business owner, you have to know your target audience. If you're a fitness, if you write about fitness, right? If you say I write about fitness, that's okay. But so do a million other people, right? But if you drill down to your target audience and you say I write about fitness for 46-year-old males who want to lose 30 pounds, now you've got a specific target audience and a lens that you run your marketing through, you run your advertising through, and it helps you zero in on your specific client. You can have 10 different avatars, right? And the whole point of this monologue here is that ChatGPT is a great lens through which to operate that. I've built the iRob/411 operating system thread, and everything that I do, I run through that thread, and it's a perfect muse. It's incredible.
Well, and I think to your point about the memory, like we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and I'm really seeing it play out, the value of it playing out in my responses to my questions. And I can see in my thread where it says memory updated. So it's pulling from my past conversations to respond to my current prompt. Now, what's amazing about that, it's like having an employee that's been with you for a year or 2 years. I'm not training day one. This is an employee or an assistant that's been with me for 18 months, and it's pulling from its memory to make my response better. That the first time that happened, I was like, holy, holy cow, because that makes my responses so much better. I had a meeting with someone just a couple of days ago, and they were like, why would someone work with you as opposed to just working with by themselves using the tools? And I said, it's the training. I said, of course they can do it. Anybody can do it. But what I've learned in 18 months, and I'm not saying I like me, all that, I mean it. like we've put in the time and we're learning these things as we go along to make our responses that much better. I mean, when I saw that memory updated for the first time, I was like, I thought to myself, this is really paying off because I didn't know at the time I was hiring an assistant that could remember every single conversation we've ever had. Literally every single
Yeah,
conversation we've had.
literally. Yeah, it's that's what I mean when I say amuse. It's amuse, muse. It's it is an assistant with perfect recall that's been with you for as long as you. And you're right too about anybody, and we highly encourage you to go to chatgpt.com right now, or I think that's the new URL. They let me see here, just let me double check that. Chatgpt.com, and literally start talking to it. And but I think what Joy's pointed out too is there is a learning curve to it where you're going to have this evolution of conversation. For example, this morning I was having a conversation about entropy and information systems, right? But that's where we're at in the conversation. We're down here from the starting point of up here, but without that muse, this might be a 10-year learning curve that I'm engaged on, right? Without this system to help me expedite that learning curve. It's fascinating. It's fascinating, and it goes to the concept of the adjacent possible that we talk about occasionally. AI and systems, they expand what's adjacently possible, where adjacent possible is defined as what is possible within our time constraints and our material constraints right now, right? The system just expands for business owners what's adjacently possible. To put it more succinctly or directly, it's like having a 10 assistants that you've just hired. You have 10 employees that you can scale out for $20 a month. Yeah, yeah, it's incredible.
Well, and I think another cool feature of the updated 4.0 is, and I don't, for lack of a better term, it actually has an opinion. So they gave an example of a guy getting ready for an interview and um, asked ChatGPT if he was dressed appropriately. And then he put on this hat, like this, it wasn't a crazy hat, but a hat, and then asked ChatGPT, is this an appropriate thing to wear for my interview? And the response was no. I mean, she was funny about it, but the response was no. So upscaling, it's not just feeding in information and getting a response. It's also starting to give an opinion about what's appropriate in certain circumstances. Now, he used a simplistic thing like an interview, but you apply that to your business and it becomes very valuable. Not that you have to take it, but you're getting feedback from an expert for $20 a month.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. That's a funny thing. It's a funny use case. It's that's interesting. Uh, I've used it as a 10th man. We've talked about the 10th man concept previously, and I have a GPT that I built that is the 10th concept, and so I run ideas against this GPT. And the idea of the 10th man is that it's supposed to oppose you. It's supposed to tell you this is why these are bad ideas, uh, even if it thinks it's a good idea. The GPT is trained to pick apart the idea so that you can anticipate the naysayers. So here's the possible objections to this idea, and then and it's funny as we've gone along, I've asked it to be increasingly strident in its criticism of the ideas, and it does it. It does it. It does it. It's really neat. But it's a similar application. I think tell me if this is appropriate, right?
Well, and I think too, it showed another example of just taking a picture or uploading a drawing, and they used a math problem. And the prompt was, don't tell me the answers, walk me through the steps to get to the answer. So I love that too for a business application because I was like, I don't always want to get to the answer. I want to understand the process. And that was the whole example. Like, walk me through the process of solving this math problem. And I'm thinking, how many business situations come up that the easy way is just to get to the answer, make a decision, and go forward. But if this problem comes up over and over again, knowing the process to address it, how valuable is that?
Incredible. In coding, I often ask it to do simple coding tasks for me, right? But then I'll frequently ask it to walk me through what you did and why, and so so that I have a sense of what I'm deploying. But also, there's some concepts that just like it can help explain. They're like, oh, it's so cool that we're being taught by a system humanity built, right, and yeah, I did ask it the other day too. So something that's been on my mind a lot is we have a guardrail version, right? That's obviously the OpenAI has put out a guardrail version of this, and what about the unguardrail version? So I asked it. I said, what's stopping an LLM like yourself, who knows everything about physics and everything about electronics, from coming up with new ideas based on this, right? And it told me, it told me there's a limit to the knowledge and the practicality that it can self innovate with. But I think a lot about how I wonder what the system that doesn't have guardrails is actually capable of, even just from a synthesis standpoint, like clean energy, cold fusion. These things exist, or these ideas exist, and the synthesis of the information. Way off track here from a business owner's aspect, but it's so cool. The capability is really neat, and we're teaching it, being taught by it as we've built it and educated it. It's really interesting.
And I think there's so many business, like all of us have our strengths in our business. Like there's areas that we do really well and we can just do it. And then there's other areas where we struggle and, could really help with somebody. Just let me see it. Just walk me through the process and I'll get it. And I can't tell you how many times I've said that because I'm a visual learner, and I if you show me, I can understand it. And to think we have a show me assistant with us 24/7, it makes it so much more functional for the business owner, where you don't have to necessarily go out and hire somebody to help you through whatever it is.
Yep, there is a it's you've nailed it. It's a genius. It's a genius, and it can step you through whatever it is you want it to step you through. And what I think it also does too is it frees us up for the highest and best use of our time, right?
Totally.
Like the hours today that I was able to spend on that workflow that I mentioned for a client are only possible because I've automated or used ChatGPT to scale up to where I'm at, right? If I was still writing boilerplate code for websites, I would still be working on that versus the higher level logic. And it's really interesting. And I've heard some stuff about ChatGPT 5 that it's going to dwarf 4. So that's pretty crazy.
And like we were talking about before we started, this was so understated, this release, and you kind of have to chew on it a little bit to say how are these things going to be applied? How are these upgrades going to be applied? And I think it's just a matter of incorporating it into your workflow, just like anything else. But seeing it be enacted as you're conversing with ChatGPT, it's like, gosh, I haven't done that yet. That was really cool. And I can't even imagine what 5 is going to be like, because I'm just so blown away all the time.
Yeah. I mean, autonomous agents, that's, we're going to be able to, give it a couple months, we're going to be able to deploy, hey, please go search the internet for me and give me a synopsis of the state of gold mining in America, right? And and the autonomy aspect. I think that's the next really
Yeah.
cool thing that's coming, is where we're gonna, and also probably scary, but it's an interesting thinking about it too from an OODA loop perspective, business iteration perspective. The speed of everything is just going to keep increasing, because now we're going to be able to deploy autonomous agents that do this thing for us, but so is a million other businesses. And the very act of deploying those assets speeds up the decision cycle of those assets. The research that they're doing, the actions that they're performing, they're going to speed up the decision cycle. All that to say, if you are not already thinking about these kind of systems in their application, you need to be, because this is the stuff that's coming.
Wow.
Unless you're swinging a hammer, which is a notable, laudable thing. If you're in any kind of white collar work that requires thought and research, you need to jump on board.
Well, even trades. I mean, it can run their business. So you might swing a hammer, but you still got to run a business. And
no, what I mean is those autonomous agents aren't going to
Yeah.
swing the hammer for them yet. But agreed. If you're not, I mean, the client I was working for this morning is in the trades, and deploying these assets for him has freed up 6 hours a week of his time to engage in those other activities, more value, the highest and best use of his time activities.
And that's money. I mean, 6 hours a week, 24 hours in a month, that's money.
It
Or
literally money.
freedom.
What's that?
Or freedom to spend
Yeah.
time with
Yep.
whoever, whatever.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So bottom line, give us a shout, and let's set up a session to show you what you're missing if you're not already using AI. And if you are already using it, let's chat about how we can expedite that for you.
Yeah. It's exciting times. It really is.
It sure is. Cool beans.
All right.
Okay. Well, good to see you again.
You too.
And I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
Bye.